Okay, and we're live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us this evening. Today is Thursday, the 19th of November, 2020. Hi, Ken. Welcome, Ken. I see quite a few of you who have joined us. Thanks for jumping on. Hi, Jespal. Hi, Carolyn. Hi, Foxing Chow. Hi, Jik Chung Ho. Hi, Lim Pui Ling. Ah Bing. Azniko, Meng Fu, Alex Lee, welcome. Ng Chi Zheng, welcome. Richard, uh, uh, L Cheng, welcome. Leong Wei, Ong, Tan Hong Yang, look, welcome everybody. Keep coming. Welcome tonight, right? Thanks for tuning in. So tonight is going to be there's a lot of content and a lot of research to share tonight. It's very interesting, and so let's I've got quite a few slides to get through. So let's go through it. So look, welcome everyone. Hi JP Low. Hi Aaron. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. Hey, look. So today there, unfortunately, 4 digits of new COVID cases. Right, 1,290 cases, of which about 37% is from the Klang Valley. So actually second highest, the highest being from Sabah. So look, those of you from, all of us out there, stay safe, right? Be careful, social distance. Stay indoors if you can. If you don't have to, go anywhere, try to stay home. Keep yourselves, your family, and your friends safe, and your colleagues. Okay, doing a mic check. Just wanted to make sure that everybody can hear me. So just mic check. Everyone, please let me know if you can hear me. Welcome, Suning Kui. Yep, Sogin, welcome. Kuiwa, welcome. Amelia, welcome. Right. Okay, just doing a mic check. Let me know if you can hear me. Okay, so those of you who are tuning in, look, whether for the first time or you've tuned in many times before, please continue to share, to like, subscribe to our channel. Right now we are live streaming to 3 areas, right? We're on Facebook Live. Oh, thanks, Benjamin. Welcome, and thanks for confirming. We're streaming, live streaming to Facebook, YouTube, and as well as Twitch, right? So any of those that if you're tuning in, if you're tuning in from YouTube, click on the bell icon, right? Choose all, right? So that you, and also subscribe, right? Subscribe, bell icon, choose all. That way, every time and anytime we go live, you will be notified on your phone or any of your devices, right? Obviously, if you're on Facebook or if you're on Twitch, feel free to follow us. Okay, all right. Welcome, Keith. Welcome, Liu Zhongwei. All right, welcome. So tonight, by the way, tonight, obviously, the topic is, can big data kill COVID-19, right? So packed full of information tonight's presentation. So look, tag your friends, right? If you think your friends may be interested in topics related to tech, right? Bleeding edge tech, as well as crypto, feel free, right, to tag them. Let them know that this is happening right now live, and that they can tune in and listen. And obviously, if you miss it, you can always watch it later, as it's going to be on YouTube. Anytime during the presentation, feel free to throw in. Hi, Xiaoming. Feel free to throw in your questions, right, in the comment section below, and just ask away, right? Because then I will, if there's time, I usually do try to answer those questions as we go. And okay, so I'll move on. I'll move very quickly tonight because there's so much to cover. Announcements, right? Announcements. Let's see. Tomorrow night, again, packed full, right? At Equities Tracker, we're here to, to make your life simpler, make it easier. We're sharing our research so that you don't have to read so much, and it's compact. So tomorrow, for the Investor Studio, those of you who have registered, you would have received your links. Tomorrow we have at 6 p.m. Perak Transit, P-Trans, right? Will be coming on to the Investor Studio. So tune in tomorrow at 6 p.m. If you have not received the URL or have not signed up, I encourage you to do so. Otherwise, just jump onto our YouTube tomorrow at 6 p.m. And then at 8 p.m., we have our club meeting. So again, this is for those of you who are members of ET. Just go on to the ET Online Club, right? At 8 p.m. we have Sai Maiden, who will be coming on, right? Hi, Xiaoming. So do tune in, right? Welcome Nicole, welcome KP Chin and Fiona Fu. Welcome everyone. So okay, so that's the end of the announcements. Let's see, recap of last week. So last week we had a guest, as usual. We have Dino from Sentiment, who dialed in from Switzerland, I believe. So he and we talked a lot about some on-chain analysis on crypto. And for those of you who are into crypto, yesterday was a pretty exciting day. Look, it's still pretty exciting, right? From last week till now, Bitcoin went from around 15,000 to well over 18,000 US dollars yesterday, and there was within 1 hour where it fell down from 18 down to 17 something, and then right back up to 18. Right now, as it stands, I think it's at 17.7. Right, so exciting times, exciting times. So here at Future Proof, right, at Equities Tracker, Future Proof, we cover everything that is bleeding edge tech, right? So do tune in, especially from an investor's perspective as well, right? So and we hope that you find value tuning in every Thursday. So please feel free to share this with your friends, tag your friends, right? Get them in here. Come on, right? Let's raise the numbers. Okay, so tonight we have some very interesting. Hi, Kuhan. Welcome. I'm going to share my screen. Chrome tab. Here we go. And okay, so I've got some. Okay, I think you can see my screen. Let me know if you can. I'm going to present. Okay, how are we doing? Okay, so can big data cure COVID-19? That's tonight's topic, right? And we have quite a few to go through. Now, before I continue, I just want to state and restate that this is not investment or financial advice. So please do not take this as so. This is just me sharing the research that we've done to our audience, and we hope you appreciate it. We hope we're saving you time, and that you take away from each of our episodes some to have gained some new knowledge, right? So this is not financial or investment advice. This is just us here having a chat and sharing our research information. So do not take this as so. If you are going to perform any investment or financial decisions, please do so and consult a financial professional. Okay, so this is it. All right, so can I just hear from the audience? Can you see the slides? Okay, are the slides blur, or is this sharp enough? Right, just welcome Terrence Lim, welcome Barry. Yeah, so if you guys can tell me whether the slides are coming through okay, or is it a little bit blur? All right, now the next one. Okay, so let's start with our favorite president, right? President Trump. I'm gonna share a video, and I'm gonna play it, and then we will continue. Right.
Hi, perhaps you recognize me. It's your favorite president. And I'm standing in front of the Oval Office at the White House, which is always an exciting place to be. I got back a day ago from Walter Reed Medical Center. I spent 4 days there and didn't have to. I could have stayed at the White House, but the doctor said, because you're president, let's do it. I said, fine. You tell me what to do, and I'm going to listen. These are great professionals. They've done a fantastic job. And by the way, not only at Walter Reed, all over the country, we have the greatest doctors in the world. We have the greatest nurses, the greatest first responders, law enforcement, by the way, incredible. Firefighters, everybody. They're just great. We have great people. This is a great country. But I spent 4 days there, and I went in, I wasn't feeling so hot. And within a very short period of time, they gave me Regeneron. It's called Regeneron. And other things too, but I think this was the key. But they gave me Regeneron, and it was like unbelievable. I felt good immediately. I felt as good 3 days ago as I do now. So I just want to say we have Regeneron. We have a very similar drug from Eli Lilly, and they're coming out, and we're trying to get them on an emergency basis. We've authorized it. I've authorized it. And if you're in the hospital and you're feeling really bad, I think we're going to work it so that you get them and you're going to get them free. And especially if you're a senior, we're going to get you in there quick. We have hundreds of thousands of doses that are just about ready. I have emergency use authorization all set, and we got to get it signed now. And you're going to get better. You're going to get better really fast. This is things that nobody even thought of a few months ago. The job that the scientists, the labs, everybody have done is incredible. In addition to that, you have various other drugs that help a lot. But these, I view these, and now they call them therapeutic. To me, it wasn't therapeutic. It just made me better. Okay, I call that a cure. So I want to get these things done. So we have to get them done. We have to get them approved. I want to get them to the hospitals where people are feeling badly. That's much more important to me than the vaccine. But on the vaccines, we have many companies that are in final stages for the vaccines: Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, Pfizer, all great companies, but many of them. And we're going to have a great vaccine very, very shortly. I think we should have it before the election, but frankly, the politics gets involved, and that's okay. They want to play their games. It's going to be right after the election. But we did it, nobody else. Nobody else would have been able to do it. The FDA has acted as quickly as they've ever acted in history. There's never been a time, and no president's ever pushed them like I put.
Okay, so that's the end of that clip. So essentially, the first company we're going to talk about, and you know, we're going to cover quite a few companies today, and they may seem like they're companies with different texts, but then you kind of see where they all link up, right? And so, all right, so thank you, Bill, and thank you, Ken, for confirming that you can see fine. So the first company that we're going to talk about is Regeneron. Now, what is this Regeneron? Hi, Emily. Good evening. So Regeneron's miracle cure, right? So obviously you heard President Trump talk about him getting COVID-19, and then within 24 hours, right? So he took this drug that was produced by Regeneron, right? And one of the first of its kind. Now you see, Donald Trump is 74 years old. That puts him in a high risk category, right? Especially he's also overweight, right? And so his risk of dying is extremely high, right? Extremely high. So Trump, right? He may have been right. Like, look, Donald Trump is a very interesting character, right? I was a fan when I was watching what was that show on TV, right? The reality TV show where he goes, "You're fired." So anyway, look, but he's quite polarizing, right? You hate him or you love him, right? That there's kind of no middle ground. But he may have been right, right? So if we're to look at it objectively, right? So so Regeneron actually partnered with Roche, right? Roche is a huge big pharma player, right? They're worth $260 billion US. So that's way over $1 trillion ringgit, right? To mass produce this drug globally, right? So now Regeneron itself is also publicly listed on NASDAQ, right? So now it is also being used in the UK as part of the world's largest randomized trial for a cure for COVID-19. Okay. Now don't forget. Now this Roche is huge. They actually tried to produce their own drug called Acterma, but that failed, right? During a trial. So this is the first drug actually designed for this disease. Okay. There are lots of good reasons for thinking that this is really quite powerful. So this is Martin Landry. He's a professor of medicine and epidemiology at the Oxford University. Now, why does he say so, right? And why has Regeneron pulled off such an incredible feat? Now, if you think about it, now look at all the other big pharma players out there. Roche is at I think the current one, 293 billion, right? That's their market cap. You look at the Johnson & Johnson's, the GSK, the Pfizer, right? they're massive. They're huge. In fact, in this slide here, you'll see that Regeneron is actually the smallest. Now, this is after this is their market cap after having doubled, right? So they started the year off at around 30 billion US dollars, right? So they're tiny compared to the big boys, the big players. Now, so just a bit of background, right? So 95% of all experimental medicines actually fail during development, right? So that, I mean, why is it so expensive? Because you know, there are very strict protocols. They have to go through a lot of regulation, right? So every year, around $100 billion is spent worldwide, right, on R&D every year. Every single year, 100 billion is spent. That's a lot of money. And only 10 to 20 new drugs are actually made from that $100 billion that's spent, right? So essentially, a lot of it actually fails as they have an idea, they have a hypothesis, right? And then they put it through a trial and they trial, and there are different stages within the trials of a medicine. Now, you know, it's actually quite difficult to develop medicine that is suitable for everyone to fix specific problems, right? So imagine you have to actually hit the lowest common denominator. So how did Regeneron do it? All right, just welcoming those who are joining us. Well, welcome Sheila, welcome Anthony, welcome Alex, right? Welcome Agnes. Okay, so now next, right? So years ago, when I say years ago, it actually took Regeneron 35 years to get there, right? They found a way to inject human DNA into mice. Now, let me repeat that. They can inject human DNA into mice. What? It's asking, right? So, so they were awarded the patent in 2013, right? But that research, that process took over 30 years, right, to get here. Now, as you guys know, I mean, from watching a lot of movies, that every time you go into a lab, besides the lab coat, it's always, you know, they always experiment on the mice, right? Hi John, welcome. Why? The question is why. So okay, so imagine this, right? Injecting human DNA into mice. Now that's crazy. So how did they biohack it, right? So these biohacked mice, their immune systems, right, actually create human antibodies when they injected the mice with the COVID-19 virus, right? So essentially, there are laws against testing stuff on humans, right? So before, you know, that there are different stages within the trial before you can actually test on humans. And even when you test on humans, right, essentially, you know, they have to give a consent form. They have to state that they know the risks of you know, going into these experimental drugs. It may or may not be life threatening, but essentially it's a very long drawn out process. But it's okay to experiment on mice. Look, I'm not going to discuss about the morality of it, but essentially, well, because they can't do it on humans, in order to speed it up, what they did was, they as I mentioned about this patented process, right? They could inject human DNA into mice. Then they introduced the COVID-19 virus into this the mice that now has human DNA. So essentially, they've done some biohacking, and now this human DNA immune system that is within the body of the mice starts to create human antibodies against the COVID-19 virus. Now, this is very interesting, right? Because like I said, this power pack, like, and tonight is this very comprehensive research that we've done, right? And I'm trying to condense it all within the time that we have. No, so okay, so we go back to why are mice used in biotech. One is they actually mice and chimpanzees, they have a lot in common with human beings, right? Mice and chimpanzees, from a DNA perspective or genetics perspective, it's very similar to humans, right? And obviously, a pregnancy of mice lasts just 3 weeks, right? So it's easy to kind of reproduce or to sort of speed up that cycle, that experimentation cycle, right? So that's why mice are used, right? And that's a very cute picture of the mice, of a mouse, right? So Regeneron's technology essentially replaces a mouse's immune system with a with the human's immune system, right? To then help it develop antibodies that will actually work on us, right? That will actually work on us. So essentially, that we're trying to use the infographics to show you what's been done by Regeneron, and this is amazing, right? So they injected the COVID-19 virus into the mice, and then the the mice's or the mice immune system, which is human, then generated antibodies. They then extracted and took this, right, to then apply to to humans. Okay, so this is on the Financial Times. It says these guys have the cutting edge technology to develop antibodies. Uh, Nobody else has been able to do what they've done. Look, obviously, right? This is just insane. This is something like out of a sci-fi movie, and it's amazing that they've been able to do this, right? So this is a quote from Dr. Luke um, Haberger, right? The associate director of the bioinformatics of the Regeneron Genetic Center. He says you cannot pursue modern drug discovery and development without incorporating human genetics. So obviously, if we're trying to find a cure to cure us humans, it has to work on us, the human body, right? And how do you propose to do that when you're not allowed to kind of test on humans, or at least that process? It's a very strict process to get to human trials. Usually takes a while, right? And of course, it's a global pandemic, and we're all trying to find the answer, right? Okay, so now let me just preface this that I am not a scientist, nor a biologist, nor a biohacker, right? This is just research that I've done, and so I'm sharing this for, well, as much and trying to share the research information, right? So the human genome, right, is the blueprint of human life, right? Human genome. Each genome, right? So one genome contains 30,000 genes. So what's a gene? A gene is a sequence of DNA, right? And if you were to have taken every human being who had ever lived, uh, lived from day one and dead now and alive, if you take just one DNA strand from each human being who had ever lived and walked the earth, dead or alive, they would weigh less than 10 drops of water. That's just to convey how small and tiny, right, DNA is. So in 2014, Regeneron began compiling the world's largest database of genetic sequences. Now, think about this, right? No one else has this database. Regeneron does. So, uh, the idea, right, is to link genetic mutations with health outcomes, good or bad, to create a large universe of potential targets for drug discovery. Now, why are they doing this? So essentially, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get down to the lowest common denominator of what we're made of, like how what what our makeup is, right, as humans. So essentially, by having the largest database of genetic sequences, it's like having a history book or having a database full of information. Actually, you know what? It's like equities tracker. We've got publicly listed companies of the stock market that goes back to the 80s, right? So having data is very important. And as you know, in the current day and age, right, there's so much talk of AI, big data. machine learning, right? And being served up ads based on our behavior. Like all this is very data driven, right? It is computational intensive, it's data driven, and it by having this database, it serves as a very important repository of data or information for them to then draw on to fix problems or create solutions, right? Okay, so they've also had the FDA approved treatment for Ebola to cure Ebola, right? That's Regeneron, right? So in the finer print, if you can't see it, I'll just read it out. Regeneron was able to develop a potential cure so quickly, within 6 months, that the WHO ended its clinical trial of other treatments, right? It used the same approach to develop a cure for COVID-19. Now, if you actually go onto Regeneron's website, you will see that the approach that Regeneron is using is, I'm going to oversimplify, but it's a cure, right? So on one track, you're trying to find a cure for COVID. And what Pfizer the other day and all the other companies are trying to do is they're trying to create a vaccine. So essentially, both are different approaches to solve the same problem. And I think and I believe they're probably complementary, right? Depending on where you are, if you were to get COVID. So this is very interesting. Now, Regeneron is part of the genomics revolution in healthcare, right? So I'll just share a bit, right? So the first human genome took 13 years and over $3 billion to sequence, right? Today, a human genome can be sequenced in a couple of days, right? 2-3 days for less than the price of the latest iPhone. Now, this is how far we've come in tech. So, taking 13 years and $3 billion to sequence. Now, obviously, you need very specialized equipment, right? And to do these things. So for every drug candidate commercialized, 24 others have failed, right? So genomics can actually transform, the drug making, right? How do I just pop a pill and fix a problem that I have? Pop a pill and live longer. How do I pop a pill and fix cancer, right? So here's the economics of it, right? So with just 10% of reduction in the failure rate at each stage of the drug development, that would double your returns on the drug R&D. So that's very interesting, right? Now, again, I'll just repeat. Now, they just have to have a 10% reduction in the failure rate, right? At each stage of their development, drug development, that would double their returns on the drug, right? So which means you gain 100% from a 10% reduction in the failure rate. So this is just a chart that kind of shares that, right? So if you did nothing, then essentially the returns will go down. The returns will go down, right? But if you were to reduce the 10% failure rate at each stage, you actually see a 100% return on your investment. Okay, so genomics, is it a big data problem? What kind of problem is it? What does it take to analyze the process and to get into it? Okay, so I'll just quote Andy Kessler, right? He says, the law of artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? The more data, the more accurate the results will be. Now, for those of you who are unaware, I used to work in this big data space. So in a day, right, a typical day, I could come in, right, fire up the laptop. I could, I could kick off. So this, I'd be working with data sets where there'll be millions or hundreds of millions of data points and rows, and with different data sources, and you would run your model, right? And when you run a model, I some days you'd come in, you start a model, right? By lunchtime, it's still not done. And by late in the evening, right, it may still not be done, right? But so essentially, to crunch big data requires well, time and computing power, right? So speed and time. So essentially, and why? Because well, one is the IO, right, the input and the output from the one. But also you would want to run it against larger data sets because it gives you more accurate results, right, on your model. So okay, so pharmaceutical and healthcare organizations are profiling the genomes of millions of patients, right? So they're generating thousands or petabytes of data. This is a lot of data, right? Now, if you think about it, genome sequencing technology has outpaced Moore's law. What is Moore's law? Moore's law says that every 18 months or so, computing power basically, doubles. Everything just doubles in 18 months. But essentially, it has gone past that, right? It's gone past that, like up till maybe about 2007, 2008. It was just by leaps and bounds. It started processing a lot more data. So when we talk about big data, right? Besides the vast amount of data, it's the like, what do you look at? What are the components involved? So the computing power, storage, and analytics required, right, to research and analyze genomic data are orders of magnitude greater than what we have seen thus far during the age of computing. This is a quote from the ARC Investment Management, Kathy Wood's company, right? Okay, I'm going to introduce. So these are what you see here. This picture here. This is a sequencer, right? It's produced by a company called Illumina. Illumina is also listed. I can't remember, New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ. It has 90% of the market, right? So essentially, they're a monopoly, right? Somewhat. So sequences. So scientists, and you would have seen this in movies, right? Who has watched the latest, or well, not latest, but Jurassic Park, right, where they sequence what do you call dinosaur DNA, right? So scientists use sequences to look at the molecular structure of the genome, right? Like for example, how astronomers use telescopes to examine the composition of stars, right? So each sequencer, right, is the equivalent of 60 million Apple iMacs, well, from 2014. Right. So if you bring it to 2020, it could be, I don't know, 30 million instead of 60 million. But essentially, that's how much computing power there is in the sequencer, right? Now, so in in terms of genomic sequencing, right? If you look at the volume, right? In 2019, 2.6 million genomes were sequenced, right? And so it is estimated by 2024 it'll be 105 million genomes, right? In terms of the sequencing that is to be done. Now, we've done an episode on Copy Time that talks about data and the growth of data. So this is a projected growth of data. So for data storage, now think about this, right? Now we think, we talked about the growth of the internet and how much data storage was required. We talked about data centers. So here's the here's the interesting thing, right? Now look at this. YouTube, right? 1,000 to 2,000 petabytes per year, and YouTube being the largest because obviously people are uploading video content, and video content is large. You can upload 4K, 1080. You can also upload 8K videos now, right? And you've got Twitter, which takes up, it'll be 1 to 17 petabytes per year. Astronomy, 1,000 petabytes per year, right? Which is large, but the largest you think would be video content, right? But no, genomics will take up between 2,000 to 40,000 petabytes per year. That's how much storage is required, right? And that's how much data there is. Can you imagine the data? So when you start, as an investor, you kind of think, well, okay, well, who's going to store this data? Where's that data going to be stored? How fast do I need that data processed, right? So I know that and would I store that data on hard drives? Would I store that data on an SSDs, right? So these are the questions you start thinking about as an investor. Okay, how much is 1 petabyte of data? One petabyte is about 1,000 terabyte, right? 1,000 terabyte is about 1,000 gigs. So for example, my laptop, which I'm streaming to you live from, has about 2 terabytes. So that's pretty high end. I could have gone 4, but I didn't want to pay that much to Apple. So 2 terabytes of data. So 1 petabyte, that's how much there is, right? So we're talking about 2,000 to 40,000 petabytes a year. That's insane amounts of data. Now think about then when you're running on an analytics platform, when you need to process that huge amounts of data, right? Now, so whilst I'm going to go back, this sequencer here, right, from, is it Illumina, the sequencer here, whilst the hardware is by leaps and bounds, really powerful, genomics software has not kept up to date, right? Or it's fairly complex, or at least the flow of data. So when you're working with large vast amounts of data sets that are from disparate or different data sources, right? It gets pretty messy. It gets pretty messy pretty quickly, and so whilst you've got extremely powerful hardware, how do you kind of tie it all together and save time and ensure data integrity and kind of make that whole flow seamless, right? So I probably won't go through this. Look, essentially, it's a very complex and complicated process, right? And it gets very messy, especially if you have got multiple data scientists working with different data sets who then need to later on combine the findings of each data sets down the pipeline, and then run those through different models, right? So how did Regeneron handle one of the world's largest human genetics sequencing and research programs, right? So of 400,000 people, right? So I'm just gonna read the quote out, okay? So as this data set has grown rapidly, we encountered significant barriers in simple tasks like gathering all the data for a given analysis and querying the tens of billions of results from our studies, right? So it grew, and data can grow very quickly, right? So there's no way I mean, look, I have a pretty top of the line laptop that I'm streaming to you from, but if you were to ask me to crunch big data, there is no way that I can crunch it. I mean, I can crunch it off my laptop, but it'll probably never finish, right? Or it'll take an extremely long time to finish. So stay with me, right? It gets a little bit technical, but for you tech guys out there and data scientists and analytics gurus, I guess you will appreciate this, right? And if they look, give a shout out if you work with data, whether you're a data analyst, you're data scientist, you are an analyst who works with large data sets, i.e. not just from Excel, right, or Google Sheets, and you have to do complex, even if you're a database administrator or you have to do complex data modeling, ETL processes and whatnot using data lakes, give a shout out, right, in the comment section below. So okay, so what did they do? They went straight. So they told themselves, hey, look, our focus is on finding cures, right, and doing this. So what did they do? They went straight to they partnered up with this company called Databricks, right, in 2017. And those of you who are in the this space, so Databricks, the founders of Databricks, actually invented and wrote a large amount of the code base for Apache Spark, right? The world's leading open source data analytics platform. All right, thanks for the comments, King. Thanks for the comments, CY Chan. Yeah, so Databricks, right? The founders of Databricks, they essentially wrote the Apache Spark, right? So it's an open source data analytics platform. Now, for those of you who are new to this, Apache is a foundation, and they've come up with a lot of open source software. And those of you who are not sure what open source software is, it is essentially software that is written for free by a community of developers, right? And people dedicate their time and their resource to actually making the software better. And literally, it's just given out for free, right? It is to, I suppose, make the world a better place, and and with a set of belief system that a good software should be free, or you should have the choice of having good software, and so Apache Spark is essentially free. Now, open source, you know what else is open source software? Stick around. I'll tell you what else is open source software, right? One of my favorite topics. So essentially, Apache Spark enables, right, distributed slash or cluster computing on analytics, right? So now that is essentially very key to big data and machine learning. Why? Now, if you think about how a computer works, right, when they talk about multitasking, essentially the process is sequential, right? I do step 1, then I do step 2, then I do step 3, then I do step 4. So essentially, if you think of it like a car driving, you're going through a single lane road, right? But what cluster computing is, think of it as a multi-lane, like a 12-lane highway where you can just blast straight down, and multiple cars, right? Multiple streams. So essentially, that's what distributed and cluster computing does, right? Spark is also used by Facebook, by eBay, Netflix, right? For all the services that we're all very used to. Okay, so essentially, cluster computing. This one gets, I'll just read from there. Right? It says, look, Spark is one of Facebook's primary SQL engines, right? In addition to being the primary system for writing custom batch applications. So Facebook optimized, tuned, and scaled Apache Spark to run on clusters of tens of thousands of machines, processing hundreds of petabytes of data, right? That's why, if you're streaming from Facebook right now, right? So on your phone, you're so behind all that, there is, this massive machine that's working really hard with petabytes and petabytes of data, right? That's all you need to know. Machine learning. So what is machine learning? Essentially, look, machine learning is the algorithm where it's not a hard-coded logic, right? If this happens, then you do that, and if that happens, do something else. No, it's not hard-coded. Everything is kind of fluid, right? The machine, analyzes, again, vast and huge amounts of data, and through that, they will find patterns within that data, and from that pattern, it will make predictions, or it learns from the data. And essentially, the science, okay, what is machine learning? The science of getting computers to act without being explicitly programmed. So I don't have to say, if 1, then do this, if 2, then do that, if 3, then do something else. No, the machine actually looks at all the data, it takes everything in, it finds patterns, it then figures out what to do. So an example of machine learning is Netflix, right? For all you Netflixers out there, when you Netflix and chill, and then you get all these recommendations coming up onto your screen, well, that's machine learning in action, right? It figures out, it looks at what you've watched in the past, right? That's why you have each member of the family has their own, because everyone kind of likes to watch different things, right? So of late, I'm getting served a lot of action movies, right? And because it it served up that because it realized, well, hang on, you watch this and this and this and this, and this kind of fell under the category of action movies. So okay, I think you like action movies. How about this? How about you watch this and this and this, right? And it might have looked at the data and analyzed, hey, you know what? Those people who also watch this and this and this also watch this. So then machine learning essentially figures and makes all those connections, right? So that's pretty cool. Anyway, so what Databricks has built and maintains for Regeneron, essentially they automated the cluster computing, right? So essentially they save Regeneron time. They streamline the processes for the data scientists to then share the data and insights. And as I mentioned, that whole sequence, essentially they partnered up with Regeneron, and they said, look, you worry about saving lives and creating the drugs to fix us, right, with COVID, from COVID, and we will take care of this for you, right? So essentially it became faster and reliable Spark pipelines. So we talk about pipelines, it's about data pipelines, right? And they ran all this on AWS, on the Amazon Web Services. Okay, I've got still quite a few. I'm going to speed this up as much as I can. I've got quite a number of slides to share tonight. So what is the Databricks effect? So there's no more DevOps. DevOps is a term called for developers and operations, right? From the IT side, to set up and maintain analytics infrastructure, right? This is maintained by Databricks. They cut the time to run queries of entire data sets from 30 minutes. Now, remember I said I used to do it from the morning, and by lunchtime it still wasn't done. So from 30 minutes to 3 seconds, right? So it's a 600 times improvement. What you will hear, a very common term, is ETL or ELT, right? So you extract data from all the different data sources, you transform that data and you load it into another storage place, right? Or ELT is the extraction, you load it and then you transform that data. They could do that in 2 days versus 3 weeks, right? So this really sped up the Regeneron's ability to perform an even wider range of studies, right? To apply, to run more tests, right? And models through it. So where Databricks sits in the so where is Databricks, right? So you have the sequencer, right? That extracts the genetic the genome data, right? Databricks is they manage and process the data, right, for the analytics platform. And then you've got AWS, right, which provides the ability to scale, right? To scale. So if all of a sudden they need to crunch massive amounts of data, they just increase the computing capabilities on AWS and they just switch it on, right? So then it's a lot faster. Okay, so Databricks, right, has since helped Biogen, right? It's another biotech company, move to the cloud, right? So essentially, so what happened with Biogen was they had insufficient storage capacity in the existing data center, which they used to manage themselves. So you hear a lot, you hear the term, going to the cloud, migrating to the cloud, going cloud native. A strategy that ET has taken, by the way, and we've been doing it. We've been in that process for a few years. What is that trend, right? What does it do, right? So essentially, what pushed Biogen to the cloud was, look, they used to maintain their own infrastructure, and they found that, hey, look, we've run out of space, we've run out of resources, and what happened was, now Biogen's network bandwidth, like their own internal infrastructure, it couldn't handle the transferring of so much information and data within their networks, that in 2018, essentially their network broke down and they had a 1 week outage. Can you imagine how much that would have cost them, right? 1 week of outage. So none of their computers could do any work because it was just down, right? So essentially, their own computing cluster or their own infrastructure could not handle the load of data that was surging through its veins. So essentially, they are now on Databricks, right, as the analytics platform, which then and they've pushed it onto the cloud. So they're doing a lot of their heavy lifting on AWS on the cloud. Okay. I'm just going to quote and read this from Biogenesis. Databricks has enabled us to find a number of variants in about 6 different genes, all of which have a significant impact on the human lifespan, right? Essentially increasing how long we live. We've been able to build out ML, machine learning models, that allow us to understand how genomic variants impact the functionality and the possible success of other drugs we're developing. Right, and this is by David Sexton, the Senior Director of Genome Technology and Informatics at Biogen. So essentially, you've got huge amounts of data. You need a platform like Databricks, right, which runs on top of Apache Spark to sort of do that heavy lifting, right? So, very brief history on this Databricks company. Now, Databricks is not publicly listed, right? So therefore, you won't be able to find them on any stock exchanges. But I'll just go through it. In 2009, Apache Spark, the Apache Spark project begins as part of a Netflix-sponsored machine learning contest, right? In 2013, Apache Spark's founders launched Databricks. So they form a company to commercialize the open source software that they have shared with the world. Right? Ben Horowitz of Andreessen Horowitz, a very famous VC venture cap company that specializes in like bleeding edge technology and very successful at that. They're also heavily invested in a lot of blockchain companies, by the way, and crypto. So Ben Horowitz from Andreessen Horowitz, they invested in Databricks at a valuation of $50 million. A year later, in 2014, Databricks sets the world record in large scale sorting, right? Sorting of data. By 2016, Databricks is valued at 500 million. That's a 10x return for Andreessen Horowitz in 3 years. 10x is 1,000%, right? 1,000%. It is now valued at 500 million, right? Thanks to Spark's massive user base. But it's still a business. They were only generating 1 million, right? So you're like, oh, hang on. You're valued at 500 mil, but you're only generating 1 million. Something's not right. So the board starts, to complain, and they launched a new search for CEO, right? So having faced investor pressure, Databricks, well, essentially the CEO, they took a sabbatical from uni, so they had to go back. They had to go back to uni to finish off what he was doing. He is now back. The ex-CEO is now back in Databricks, and he's now the chairperson, I believe. And so, like Databricks, there were 4 founders, right? So one of the other founder took the position of CEO, right? So then in 2018, Databricks launched its genomics platform. Regeneron was its first client. So Regeneron would work with Databricks, right? And Databricks is a relatively new company at that point, but they had highly valuable data and a flagship project that would help them sort of get to where they needed to get to, right? So it says Databricks knew genomics was a big data issue, right? And was looking for enterprise features to sell. So essentially what they did was they had to go find a big client, and they had to go and solve their problem and increase their revenues. Okay. And so, in 2017, Microsoft OEMs Databricks, right? And now if you were to go to any of the 3 or 4 large cloud providers, one of them is Microsoft, right? So Microsoft Azure Databricks, right? So there's a it's that's $40 million of revenue from one. They just jumped to 40, right? And then they launched their genomics platform with Regeneron as the first client, 2018. by 2019, the revenue was now at 100 mil. Projected revenue for this year is 200 mil. So that's another 100% increase. So, they jump from 1 to 40 to 100 to 200, right? And they plan to IPO in 2021. That's next year, right? Now, this is interesting because, again, these are companies that are in high tech, but they're not yet listed. If you could gain access to buy their shares, would you? Right? It's quite interesting because can you imagine Ben Horowitz? He managed to buy it when Databricks was valued at 50 mil, and by the time they IPO, right? Yeah. So these are the funding rounds, right? So by Series F funding, they are now, so from 50 mil, they are now valued at 6.2 billion, right? And then obviously by the time it IPOs, it depends on the secondary market. So question to the audience, right? Look, thanks for staying with me so far. Would you, if you had the opportunity, actually put money into a company like Databricks pre-IPO, right? Okay, so I'm just gonna go very quickly through this, right? This is about the information that is created worldwide, right? So you've got 16% of information created worldwide, which is where we are now. This is estimated at 47 zettabytes, right? Zettabytes. I'll show you how many zeros that is in a later slide. And of that, 16% is actually structured data. So there's a lot of data that happens, and some are structured data, some are unstructured. And by 2025, right, 36% of that data or information that's created will be structured data. So Databricks falls in at around right here, right? So because so again, 1 petabyte is 1,000 terabytes. What happens after petabyte? It's exabyte. You add 3 more zeros, and then it becomes zettabyte, right? So it's basically massive. Okay, so now big data is more than just genomics, right? So a company's ability to compete is now measured by how successfully it applies analytics to vast amounts of unstructured data sets across disparate sources to drive product innovation. There's a chief data scientist from Sequoia Capital, Chandra Narayan, who said that. Now, what does that mean, right? So that means, look, you can use big data in genomics, but look, it is used everywhere in every aspect of our lives, including, on Facebook, on TikTok, Netflix, right? It's all big data. So big data and analytics, look, so many usage, right? Automotive, communications, financial services, education, research, healthcare, law enforcement, utilities. Look, in every aspects, every industry, big data can be used, right? Or will be used. So far, Databricks has 2,000 clients. They're in all of these industries, right? So they're in advertising and marketing, energy and utilities, media and entertainment. They're in life sciences. They're in all these industries. FINRA, right, is Databricks client, right? FINRA is the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority in America, right? So they have more than 100 billion trading events per day from 12 securities markets. So what it does, they ingest all these large trade data, right? They perform an ETL process, and then they run machine learning to identify patterns of fraudulent trading behavior. So essentially, technology to counter and look, they will figure out if there's any fraudulent trading behavior, and the technology is there to actually to do that. I'm going to skip through this part, but essentially what we're saying is that the end of Moore's law, it's no longer doubling every 18 months. It's going even faster than that, right? Essentially, it's more than doubling, right? So what does that mean? that the end of Moore's law. It means high performance applications will need very fast computing. Uh, high perform. So what does that mean, right? That means that uh, back in the day when you needed extremely powerful computers or extremely powerful applications to run locally on your device, that's all going to move to the cloud, right? It's no longer feasible to run that on your locally anymore, right? So you just run it off the cloud. So wait, let me go back. Yeah. So it says where data centers are measured in football field sizes, further enabled by new 5G networks, right? So remember in one of my previous episodes, I mentioned that 5G is going to change the world, partially the enablement or the availability of 5G, and for vast amounts of data to actually travel, right? So essentially, going cloud native, moving to the cloud, migrating to the cloud, that is going to be, that is the trend, right, of the future, and what it looks like. Now, I've got a very interesting chart here, right? Now, cloud has vastly outperformed NASDAQ, right? And NASDAQ is where all the tech stocks are actually listed, right? And so BVP, this is the BVP, is actually a fund. A NASDAQ Emerging Cloud Index, right, where they essentially took the performance of the NASDAQ index, which is the one in green, and then you have the Dow Jones, which is the one in gold, and then there's a bit light blue here, baby blue, that you can see. That is the S&P index. Now, the BVP NASDAQ Emerging Cloud Index, what they did was they took all the cloud products and services companies, and they've tracked them since 2013, and they have greatly outperformed the rest of them, right? So so this is cloud products. So what are cloud products? We're talking about the Salesforce. We're talking about Adobe, Atlassian. We're talking about CrowdStrike, Okta, right? PayPal, Zoom, Square, Shopify, Cloudflare. Now it excludes Amazon, excludes Google, right? Because we're talking about software, right? Software as a service. So okay, now let's talk about the enterprise cloud, right? Is this the next $1 trillion software industry? So we've had two waves, right? So the first wave was software as a service, right? So you saw the emergence of Salesforce. You saw Adobe moving from from being run locally to providing a cloud service. You have Shopify. Then the second wave, right, was essentially the public cloud. So we're talking about the three large cloud providers here, right? You got the Amazon Web Services, you have Microsoft Azure, and you have the Google Compute, GCP, right? Google Cloud Platform. Now, these are the big, large ones. Obviously, there's Alibaba Cloud as well, right, in this region. So these are the big ones. Now, there is a third wave that is the enterprise cloud. This is where the enterprise, most of the enterprise software, and you will see that this is commonplace, right? Especially if you work for large companies, large MNCs. A lot of them have in-house computing, right? They maintain their stuff in their own data centers. But as you see the growth of this happening, or the wave of moving to the cloud, I there is this view that enterprises will soon realize, hey, you know what? This is way too much work. Why don't I just leave and move stuff onto the cloud, because it allows me to scale. It allows me to scale immediately as and when I can scale up, I can scale down, right? And so you've got companies like Databricks, you've got companies like MongoDB and Snowflake, where you see this evolution happening. So the question is that where the next $1 trillion software industry is going to be, right? Enterprise cloud. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna speed through this as quickly as I can. It's already 9:04, right? So all right. Alex has a has a cool cool comment. I'll just put this up for a sec. He says, the future looks cloudy with a chance of data bricks. Okay, so now I'm going to shift your focus and switch gears a little bit, and let's look at Nvidia. Right, this is one of the FANG stocks. If you've heard of FANG, now, what is Nvidia? So Nvidia, well, for all you gamers out there, you know that Nvidia produces your graphics cards, right? Your GPU, right? Your graphics processing unit. So Nvidia bought Mellanox. What is Mellanox? They're a data center networking company. They bought them last year. SoftBank, right, is selling the British chip maker ARM. You know, the ARM that's in your Apple phone and your iPad and all that. These ARM processors, right? They're selling ARM to Nvidia for $40 billion. So what is Nvidia up to, right? Where are they going? So if you look at this chart here, and if you look at 2019, right, you'll see that whilst gaming is still strong for Nvidia, you see the rise, right, in 2019 of data centers, and you're thinking, well, hang on, what's data centers got to do with Nvidia? I thought it's a graphics processing. Now this is with first-hand insights that I will share. It's interesting. Did you know that you can spin up compute engines or processing on any of the cloud providers, and you can say, hey, you know what? I need a GPU attached to that virtual machine. So they will have dedicated GPUs attached to it. They can have you can attach 2 GPUs to it if that's what you need, right? So so now you can customize the computing power that you need and switch it on and off and pay a per second or per minute charge. So, but there's more. Okay. So Nvidia is betting on the cloud. What does that mean? Right. So Nvidia has recently unveiled a new data center new data center chips, right, to speed up pace of AI. Now, we mentioned about the the trend of big data sets, genomics, machine learning, where and a lot of these enterprises are figuring out, hey, you know what, we don't have the expertise, or we don't have the necessary resources to maintain this, or it's taking us away from our game where we should be focused on making drugs to fix COVID, for example. So let the professionals handle it, right? I'm sure Google and Amazon and Microsoft have highly well-paid engineers to look after their infrastructure at scale, right? And they will do a fantastic job at it. So what is this, right? So they essentially unveiled, right, the new chip, which Huang, the Jensen Huang, who's the CEO, called the biggest leap in Nvidia's history. Now, so this is interesting. So they call it's called the Ampere chip design. It's meant to be 20 times faster than its predecessor, right? And it has the flexibility to be repurposed between the 2 key areas of AI processing and training and inference. So okay, so we're still on Nvidia, right? Here's where I now tie Nvidia back to Apache Spark, right, which is then tied to bricks. Essentially, this year, right, in 2020, May this year, the Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang announced the support for Nvidia GPU acceleration on Spark 3.0, right? What does that mean? That means so now you've got this GPU that Spark can run off. That means you are now combining not just software, you now have dedicated hardware that can make it run even faster. Now, remember I mentioned about the single lane and the multi-lane highway. Now, this is where you are now using you are having not only the software do the cluster computing, but now you throw in the power of a GPU, which allows you to do parallel computing. It's just going to speed it up by orders of magnitudes, right? It's just going to make it even faster. So essentially, open source community accelerates Spark 3.0 with native NVIDIA GPU support, lightning fast ETL, and SQL processing on hundreds of terabytes of data. Look, the speeds will just be insane, right? Now, this is a picture of the NVIDIA GPU, right, box, and this is from 1999, right? So they now NVIDIA entered the GPU industry, right, knowing that gaming and graphics would be a big deal, right? And it's now, what's it doing? It is now making big bets, heavy bets on data centers, right? Okay. So far, we've explored biotech, genomics, right? We were talking about Regeneron there. We've explored Databricks, right, with big data, data centers, with Nvidia. Now these are all trillion-dollar opportunities, right? But most importantly, now Alex Winifred has a comment that says Nvidia surpassed Intel in market cap not too long ago. It's amazing feat. Yeah, it is, truly is. Okay, so now these are right. So we've talked about all these tech, right? Now, what is all this for, right? Well, I mean, these are all trillion-dollar opportunities. Most importantly, right? So these are technologies that are now converging, right? Converging, that will hopefully save lives, right? Because you're able to speed up that process of discovery, the process of learning, and the process of figuring out how it all hangs together, right? And analysis. Look, COVID. This is just a picture of essentially the dashboard of global cases. We've hit 56 million cases, right? Obviously, US is the biggest hit, and 1.3 million deaths since it started. So, yeah. So, I mean, it was very tech focused, but hopefully it will save lives. All right. So I think I'm at my last slide, and thank you all for staying right to the end. If you had $1,000, right, and you could only choose one of these companies to invest in, which one would you put your money in, right? Nvidia, right? Would you put into Illumina, who has 90% of the market of sequencing, genetic sequencing? Would you put in the Databricks, right? Pre-IPO, right? Which was valued at 50 million and now at 6.2 billion at their latest Series F funding, or Regeneron, right? Which has the world's largest database of genome data. Which one would you choose? Put it in the comment section below. It is 9:12. Ken says he would put money into Databricks. All right. Look, guys, thank you so much for staying with us. Look, I have talked nonstop since we started, and I've gone over time, and we actually started on time today. Today's presentation is Power Pack. We covered so many things. I hope there was some takeaway from it. Right? Continue to come on every night. Ben's got a question. What about Palantir? That's a good question. Happy to maybe cover it on one of the future proof sessions. Their main what do you call customer for Palantir is actually the US government. But we can cover that, no problem. So Melissa would put the Regeneron, JP Low on Databricks, Barry would put money on Nvidia, KP Chin will put money on Regeneron, right? Zamri will put it on Databricks. Ben, Databricks. Okay, yeah, Ben, yeah, great. I'll definitely keep that in mind, right? So here's a comment from CY Chan. How far would you say that the Jurassic Park and longevity process would be relative at the rate we're going? Look, you know what? I'm not an expert in this field, but gauging at what at the current trend of where we can speed things up. I guess the other side of it is the economics of it, right? Is it viable? Like, what would make it what would help with the bottom line of these big pharma guys who are coming out with that. So that is also a consideration. But you know what? I think the tech is getting better. It's getting more and more powerful, speeding up processes. Then the next question is, well, is it gonna be a multi-trillion-dollar industry? If it is, then I'm pretty sure that's where those big pharmas would focus on. So CY Chow will put money in the Databricks. Stephen Chair, Databricks. Hey, good to see you, Stephen. It's interesting. This is interesting, right? So I've got a lot of Databricks. Why is it because of the potential gains that you might have once it's actually listed? Yeah, do let me know in the comment section below. Alex says, I hope no Jurassic Park happens, because we might go extinct, Monita. Yeah, nice one, Alex. Look, guys, I hope there was, I hope you've gained from this. We work really hard to do research and to share with you. Do share this with your friends. Please come on, onto our come and join us every Thursday night for Future Proof, right? And yeah, look, thank you for joining us. Continue commenting, right? And look, thank you, and come back next week. We will have more great information and more great data for you. Oh, Steven's got a he's got a comment. If I was a global data center operator at clinic, buy Databricks. Yeah. Well, Microsoft's actually bought into Databricks as well. There's quite a few. Thank you, sir. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you, Wilson. Great comment. Look, keep coming back, guys. Tag your friends, right? We need more viewers. We need your support. Just come on. Lee FL would put into Databricks. Ken, yeah, thank you, Ken. So, look, guys, come join us, right? And learn something new every Thursday, right? And look, we are at the edge of bleeding. We're at the bleeding edge of tech, right? That's essentially what Future Proof is all about. We're gonna talk. We talk a lot about crypto. We talk about a lot about everything else, right? Today was about not just biotech, right? We talk about a data analytics platform. We even talked about about Nvidia, right? One of the FANG stocks. Yeah, look, thank you, Stephen. Kind comments. Thank you, Lee. Yeah. So, guys, thank you. Have a great evening. Stay safe out there. Bye.